What about creating like a sense of depth? Right now, when I look at these three lines right here, it just looks like a bunch of walls stacked up against each other. How is it that I get them to have this sense of depth? And that goes into step 2, which is using contrast. So if I select that bottom cliff, the one that's at the very bottom, I can go over and click color adjustments. You see open stroke, color adjustments. If I click that, and if I bring the brightness down like this, you'll start to notice that there's a contrast between the darker cliff and the lighter cliff. And what we're going to be doing here is remembering this very simple rule. Things that are farther down are going to be darker, and things that are higher up are going to be lighter. So it's the light against the dark that creates this sense of contrast. So the same thing, I want to create a gradient of dark just to lightest. So this middle one that I have selected should also be a little bit darker, but it shouldn't be as dark or darker than the bottom one, but it also shouldn't be lighter or as light as the top one. And so now you're creating this sense of depth by changing the brightness of each set. And so then I could go ahead and, if I wanted to, I could just take another one of those, copy, paste, put it on top, bring the brightness up a little bit. And then what we're doing is we have this sense of depth using that. And again, I want to change that offset. Just always remember, you have to change the offset. Otherwise, the artifacts in the line are all going to be exactly the same. And that just looks really unnatural. But you get the concept, right? Using darks and then using lights, the contrast, do it. There are multiple ways of going about doing this as well. Instead of just using changing the brightness of a stamp, you can also use shadow, light and shadow as well. So I could go ahead and just go to the brush, choose the color black. I'm going to choose top layer. That means it's going to paint on top of everything. And I go over to my right panel where it says layers top, and I click this little cog, change that blend mode to overlay like that. And then I'm going to change my opacity to about 30%. I generally try not to go any higher than that, because when you're painting, you generally want to do multiple strokes instead of one large stroke, multiple strokes. So one way to show height is, how do I show that this part over here on the right side is higher up than the bottom part? I can just take that shadow and just paint right here. And already you can see that there is a little bit of a difference, right? We used darker against light to show height. And then we can add another stroke that just goes right against here like this, because we want to create what's called ambient occlusion. And that's going to be wherever the cliffs come in contact with the ground, we're going to create a harder, thicker light or shadow that goes around the bottom part like this. So I'll bring it up even more and just create this harder, thicker line. It doesn't have to be that hard, but you can create this harder, thicker line. And then already you can see a sense of depth. It doesn't have to be that thick.